Check one, two, three. Hey everybody, it's Michael Helms, also known as Michael the Sound Guy, and this is the Location Sound Podcast. You know, each episode we talk with location sound mixers, boom ops, and other industry pros about the various aspects of recording sound on location, whether it's for feature and independent films, TV commercials, interviews, any time where dialogue from actors is recorded. I started my career in the recording studios in New York City with some of the big artists back in the day, and later on projects for networks like HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, and the Cartoon Network. As time went by, I got out of the studio and began working in production sound. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, thanks for joining us. My guest today is a location sound mixer and sound designer since 2005, and he has worked in both television and film. Please welcome the sound wizard, Paul Jefferys.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you.
Now, we always like to start off the show by asking what's in your audio kit. So tell us about your mics, your mixer, power distribution, and everything in between.
Sure, we'll do. The mixer and recorder I use is Sound Devices MixPre-10T. Previously, I used a Roland R88, which, as far as bang for your buck, it was a great recorder. But over time, it's big, it's bulky, and it's kind of like that Tascam one, the 8-channel one. It's like a huge box, man. It does its job, but it's a little bulky for a bag-based system. So I went with the MixPre-10T, and I really like it. As far as wireless receivers, I'm a Zaxcom guy. I've got the QRX 200 and then QRX 235 with the IFB in it, so I can change frequencies wirelessly. And I also use the Zaxcom, the transmitter, the TRX LA, I think it's 3.5. And with that guy, what's cool is it's got the onboard recording too. So if I do have an RF issue, I can record remotely, so I don't lose that audio. And I'm very happy with that system too. It's saved my butt a couple of times, and records to micro SD cards on board. As far as my power, I've got a battery bud too, and MP1 batteries that run the whole rig. Occasionally I'll run a monitor from the same thing, and it's an old Marshall, like when they first started doing like HD monitors. I try not to because it just sucks the battery really bad, so I'll either run that from power or see if I can pinch a V-mount off somebody.
Right.
As far as the wireless lavs, the lavaliers, I use Sanken COS 11s. I really like those. I needed something that would kind of work well for an exposed lavalier, like for television interviews and things like that, and then also something that I could hide. So I use those with the little, I can't remember the name of the company that makes the mounts. It's kind of like a hard black rubber type mount, which they can still create a little bit of clothing noise, but if you put a piece of moleskin over top of it, it's pretty much good to go. Let's see what else. Shotguns. I use a Sennheiser MKH 416 short shotgun, and then for exteriors, I actually use the old 816. So the big long shotgun, and it's powered by M-Power, so I had to buy a converter from Phantom Power to the M-Power, but it's pretty good. You can get sound from a good long distance away and still have it be usable. Nice.
And you said you had MP1s for power?
Yeah, yep. I have 2 of them. Usually, like if I'm going full bore, I can usually get about 6 hours out of it, but I'll swap it out at 5 just to be safe,
And what kind of bag do you have?
It's the Orca, the small bag. I can't remember the exact nomenclature of it, but everything in there fits pretty snug. And then I use their OR cart too for a sound cart / bag. I sort of tweaked it on my own. I put some drawers in there from stuff I picked up from Walmart, and it really is kind of a Franken bag, so to speak.
I was looking at those Orca, was it the Orca 48 Sound Cart, and I was wondering if is it worth it?
I like it, and the thing that I found with Orca is I know a lot of people weren't happy with the handle on the cart. Mine broke, and they also replaced it free of charge. I just told them it broke, and they sent me another one. So they stand behind their products.
Yeah, I saw it in a couple of your pictures online, and I was like, oh, look, somebody's using it. They seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah, yep.
What kind of timecode boxes do you use?
I usually, I don't have a wireless one. I would use a Tentacle if somebody wanted, me to have the wireless capabilities. I'll rent one. But usually I just go ahead and generate timecode with the MixPre-10T, and I'll jam it to whichever cameras that we're using. If it's a multi-camera shoot and they're using something like an Asia or whatever, I'll just jam timecode to that.
Looking at some of your projects you've worked on, you were sound mixer and sound designer on the film Shadow Fighter with the late Burt Reynolds. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Oh, wow. Okay. Shadow Fighter was actually my first film that I recorded the dialogue on set, and then also did the sound design and the final mix. So that was kind of a blast. It was actually back then. I was using the Roland R-48. Yeah, it was a good time. The director was Alan Darnay. He's a good friend, kind of a mentor, and the lead actor there, Steve Darren. I've worked with him on a ton of stuff. Again, a really good guy. And I think for me, a lot of what we do is based on relationships, and the way that Shadow Fighter came about for me is Alan was actually an actor in another film that starred Steve Darren. It was called Hollow Creek, which coincidentally had Burt Reynolds in it as well, in a small scene. And that's how I met both of them. And then when it came down for Steve to make Shadow Fire, Alan was the director, and he brought me on to do sound for that. And it's just sort of snowballed from there. Yeah, it was a blast. It's kind of a little tight-knit group there. The DP on there, John Schellinger, I work with him a lot. My boom operator, Devin Ryan. Usually if I do a narrative and you're talking about a 3 or 4 week long haul type deal, then I usually bring on a boom operator, and Devin Ryan's my guy.
Okay. Any particular challenges you had on set working on that?
With that, we had a lot of, the main location there was the kid's house, which is in downtown Lake Worth. It's not the greatest neighborhood in the world. It's an older house, wooden floors, hollow floors, very tight spaces. And at the time, the DP, John, was using rheostats, which create a hum, That was more of a challenge in post. I let the director know. I have a philosophy: hate me now or hate me later, right? So I make them aware of what I'm hearing on set. And they also have IFBs too. I failed to mention I have an old Comtech IFB system that I use. So the script supervisor hears it, the director hears it, everybody hears what's going on. There's no secret, So it's always, hey, look, there's a hum in here, and that's generated from the rheostat. You can try and pull it out in post, or just be prepared. You might have some ADR. That's never an ideal situation, but we can either lose the rheostat or, that's what it is, So they wound up keeping it, and we wound up having to clean some of that up in post. We did have to ADR some lines too, which I loathe that. I know it's, it happens on almost every film, but the idea is not to have that. But yeah, that situation there was probably the most challenging on that film.
Now, how often do you get a chance to mix a project that you've also recorded on set?
As far as short films, I've done the full feature with Shadow Fighter that I did. There were some short films, like another one that I did with Steve was called All That Matters. And then another one I did, the director, Talina Adamo, that was In the Arms of Madness. That was a stereo mix, not a 5-1 mix. The other two were 5-1 mixes. But yeah, as often as I can, I love it when I get to be able to see a project from start to finish. The Lifetime stuff that I've done, like the Killer series, Barbie Castro was usually the producer of that, and the lead actress. This last one we did, Dream Killer, she actually directed it, which was pretty cool. She's a good director. But with those, I hand off the post to a company called Juniper Post out in LA. Yeah, so that's kind of a different story, But they do a great job. Frankly, I'm a one-man band, and, they got 3 or 4 guys on their team, and they can crank it out a lot faster than I can.
Now, if you could tell other location sound mixers out there, things that they could do on set that could really help post-production, what would you recommend?
You want to record the cleanest dialogue you can. And the thing about being a location sound mixer is you have to work with the other departments. A lot of what you do, you're going to have to work hand in hand with the wardrobe department. A lot of people don't realize that, but especially first-time sound mixer, if you walk into a project and you haven't spoken with the wardrobe department and you've got multiple fabrics on top of other ones, like a cotton shirt and a polyester button shirt over top of that, it's going to make noise. Even if it doesn't rub on the mic, you're going to hear the fabric rubbing itself. Dangling necklaces, things like that. But if you can get with your wardrobe supervisor ahead of time, help be integral in picking out the fabrics and things that they're going to use. And even a lot of times they'll sew loops in the costume for you. So there isn't a whole lot of guesswork once you get on set. So pre-production. Same thing with location scouting. Try to be involved with the location scouts. Let's say you're shooting in a residential neighborhood, and this has happened to me. if you once the house has been picked out, ask them. Say, hey, do you guys have any lawn maintenance scheduled by any chance? Ask the neighbors too if you can. I got to one location and they had roofing that was going to be done that day. So again, I feel like crap, and it's out of my control. I can't help you at that point. So yeah, pre-production. Believe it or not, for sound. That way, a location, you know what you're going to need to get good sound. If you've got to lay sound blankets or whatever, something to kill the reverb and the echo, you know about it long before you get to set. And I know on a lot of indie films and smaller projects, the sound mixer isn't really included with location scouting.
Yes, that is true. I actually was working on a commercial the other day, and we were filming actually up in Daytona. We're actually setting up, and this truck pulls up with a big trailer, and they're going to be working on all the medians in the area. So and I'm like, and sometimes, with smaller productions, and then all of a sudden, right in the middle, besides being close to the airport, there's also Embry-Riddle Flight School. So it's one small plane taking off after another. Like I turned around and watched that. There was one. Here's the second one coming right after it, and here's the next one. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so and they're kind of circling, because they're learning how to fly. Yep. And so that was a challenge. Plus you've got the airport where big airliners are taking off. And then all of a sudden you start hearing a pile driver because they were building a new bridge down the street. I'm like, oh my gosh, did we not check? So anyway, it was always an adventure. So we actually went back to the studio, and I'm probably going to have to do some dialogue replacement with that. But I went and had our subject go ahead and do her lines, multiple times, so we can try to fix it in post. But yeah, it happens. That's for sure.
Lawn care crews too. They follow me everywhere. I swear.
I think they follow all of us.
Yeah. Yep. I try and think about, particularly on set, and I guess this could go for any department, but think about, how what you're doing is affecting somebody else, Like I think one of the classic battles between, a camera department and the sound department, and I wouldn't call it a battle, but let's just say friction, the wide shot, right? Let's shoot everything in a wide. It's like, okay, it's difficult to get the presence on the microphone, on a shotgun anyway, on a wide, obviously. But some of these newer shows I watched, like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, right? And they're in a room. It's like where she's working the makeup counter in that mall, right? There's tons of tile everywhere. It's very echoey. It's a wide shot. They didn't do anything about it. They left it. Like, okay. So sometimes let it go. It's, camera perspective. It's okay. It's a wide shot, man. It's all right. You use the lavs and you record it, so you can put some presence in there and find that balance between make believe in quality audio. But yeah, so it's a bit of a let go process there on wide shots.
So what was the most interesting project you've done so far, you think?
I was involved a couple interviews for Nick Bollettieri documentary on Showtime. That was pretty cool. Kind of hear their perspective on his life. And but yeah, the most interesting would probably be Shadow Fighter. I would say. That's a film that I was emotionally invested in. The crew, all friends, and it was a great story. It's a good inner city story about youth struggling with drug abuse and things like that, and it's really good. And the last movie that I did with Barbie Castro, Dream Killer, which actually just won a bunch of awards in LA Film Festival, which is pretty cool.
Oh, fantastic!
That was unique because I had a lot of on-set performances. So there was a little bit of playback there, but there was also some of it that we recorded right there. Mic'd up an acoustic guitar, and there wasn't a playback. It was the girl and her guitar, and that's it. And that's what wound up in the film, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Shadow Fighter and Dream Killer, I would say.
Now, are there any current projects you're working on that you can talk about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been doing audio for a show on Fox Business called Trending Today. I think they're shooting it. It airs quarterly, but basically focuses on different local businesses and kind of like what makes them unique. We have an in-studio host, and then we'll go out and we'll do interviews and what makes them unique, how their approach to business makes them unique, essentially, which is pretty cool. So that's usually like at least once or twice a month I'll fly out somewhere. Like I just came back from Arizona Friday from a shoot that we did out there. You just get by with anything you can. Like we're doing a town hall meeting on Monday for a company called Blue Green Vacations. which they bring me in every 2 or 3 months to run audio for their town hall meeting, which doesn't sound glamorous, but getting pays the bills. So we gotta be realistic here sometimes.
Exactly, yeah. Shifting gears a little bit, do you recommend renting gear or buying gear?
I'm a guitarist as well, and I think this comes from being a guitarist, and other musicians will understand this. I'm a bit of I love gear, and I think anybody in production really does, but that's where I try and have what I'm going to use on set. If we have to rent something, okay, but I try and have, everything as part of the package that I deliver. So I'll rent something if I have to. Like I said, we mentioned sync boxes. If they really want that, cool, we'll rent one, no worries.
Okay. Now, we always have to ask, what was your worst on-set experience?
Okay. We were doing this futurism seminar thing. And at the time, I was just a PA. And this is where I first met Larry. He was running audio for the interviews and such. And I was just looking for side work at the time. So I was hired as a PA. And they had a conference, an interview with Prime Minister of Britain, David Cameron. And they rented the PA from the hotel, and they didn't hire an engineer. So I sort of got thrust into that. Scotland Yard comes in with the bomb sniffing dogs, and they sniff down the whole place, and they pat you down to make sure you're square, And the guy that was conducting the interview, I mic'd him up. No worries. I did a typical lapel mic on his suit coat. And then I went to mic David Cameron. He took the microphone and did it himself, and I was shuffled off. He put it on the wrong lapel. So he's going to sound off mic, compared to his interviewer. And this is a live show here. Like Oliver Stone's in the audience, for instance.
Oh,
And so I'm trying to ride that medium, trying to get him up to where it's usable. But, you wind up with that feedback that kind of creeps in, and nothing makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck is when some nonsense like that goes down. So I think I spent, the 45 minutes of that interview bright red. I mean, it was usable, but I don't know, I just got thrown to the wolves there a little bit. Embarrassing, but, it was usable.
Yeah, nothing like a live situation where you can't adjust the mic and that's it. That's what it is.
It was what it was.
What's been your biggest technical challenge on set?
I would say different costumes and developing different techniques to hide microphones and still get that clear audio, Like a lot of that's working with wardrobe. If you don't have the benefit of doing pre-production with wardrobe, then you just kind of go on the fly, My techniques are similar to everybody else's, but like the button-down shirt, my go-to is to hide it in between, the two pieces of fabric there where the button is. That doesn't always work though. If it's a particularly starched shirt, or say the subject has a hairy chest, and they're moving a lot, you're going to hear that hair, not necessarily rubbing on the microphone, but you'll pick up that hair. So it might be, time for a readjust. Either don't go between there, which is my normally go-to, just, try and tape it up to the chest as high as possible. Or sometimes I'll do like the chest rig, with an ace bandage like around the chest, and then just attach it to there. But yeah, it's always kind of adapt and overcome,
Yes. I actually worked with a guy recently, and he had shaved his chest. So he had all this stubble, and I tried so hard to get rid of that crackly noise. So it's not the shirt. So I used a little Joe sticky stuff, and I had a hide-a-mic set up, and I put that on the shirt. And so the shirt wasn't moving, but the stubble all behind it was. So then I put a little piece of moleskin, and I turned it around, and I faced it toward the stubble and had it right behind the mic, because that's what was scratching, right behind the mic.
Yeah.
And that lessened it a little bit. But then I ended up just, going right on the chest. But because there was so much stubble around it, I mean, it really was a challenge. And luckily, when he was talking, he was a little, wasn't so much movement going on. But he walked in, did his line, and he walked out. And I was really struggling. So always a challenge for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there particular expendables that you like to use when miking up people?
I use the Rycoat stickies just because, you can get 500 on a big roll the price keeps dropping because they had their new ones come out. But that's usually what I use, and I make do with those. Like with the COS 11 with the little mount there, I'll cut the Rycoat sticky in half and just tape it to the top part of the mount, not to the microphone, because the way the diaphragm on that microphone is, if you get some sticky on there, you're going to hear it. It'll start to peel off and it makes noise, So I just cut the Rycote sticky in half and attached that to the top part of the mount. As far as batteries go, I use rechargeable bats. And again, a client, if it's not a live situation, I'll use the rechargeable batteries for my transmitters. And I've found that clients really appreciate not getting hit with a battery bill at the end of a shoot. You know, even if you make them aware of it, that, hey, you know, there's going to be some battery expenses. They're usually like, oh, you know, $400 in double A's. You know, it's nice to be able to say, yeah, no, that's not a problem with me.
Now, have you ever forgotten anything when you were on your way to the set, and then what'd you do about it?
All right. Marriage Killer. That was another one of the Lifetime killer movies. Or, you know, I don't think Marriage Killer it's a killer movie, but it wasn't on Lifetime. But anyway, I digress. I forgot my MP1s. So at the time, I was using the R88, so I was able to pop in a bunch of double A's into there. And I got through the day. What else? We were shooting, it was an exterior at a park. So I did that until we got close enough to a pavilion, and it was running like a 50-foot Stinger, you know, to power the recorder. But yeah, other than that, I'm usually pretty diligent about that stuff. I'll go through and I'll check everything off and make sure that I've got everything. But yeah, I definitely screwed up on that one.
All right. So for those of our listeners getting started, do you have any freelance tips you could share?
When you're first getting started, just work as much as possible. You know, you can go to, I mean, I went to a film school at Palm Beach State College. It's a 2-year degree. You know, that's fine. That's a good foundation, but it doesn't prepare you for what you're going to run into out on set. So just work as much as possible. You know, when you start off, like myself, I started off, I had like a Zoom H2N and like an Audio-Technica shotgun that I duct taped to a paint pole. It was ridiculous. But you can get by working on short films and stuff like that. No, you're not going to make a whole lot of money at first. You can always sort of balance that artistic where you're going to work a short film maybe for free, but then you grip on the side and you make legitimate money that way, which is, I did a lot of that early on. And then just slowly build up that gear. And keep in mind too, you know, I have a different philosophy, you know, about that. You can also rent equipment. But in the indie world, a lot of times I found that producers aren't going to go for, you know, renting equipment. They want you to pretty much come with the package.
Now, when you're doing freelance work, do you try to get 50% up front or some sort of deposit, or how do you
for post? For post, I try to work it in thirds if I can, but you know, sometimes it's 50. But for the longer shoots that I've worked on, thankfully I'm usually paid every week. So by the end of the shoot, I'm all squared up. That's usually what I prefer. If not, then yeah, I would like half up front, you know, because if you're going for a 3 or 4 week stretch with no pay, there's got to be, you know, some kind of income coming in. But that actually hasn't been a struggle for me.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I had a client that was net 60, and the first time I worked with them, but then they came back to town a few months later and we worked again. It was net 60 still, but I think about 2 weeks later I got paid, and I was like,
oh,
hey.
Nice.
So I sent him a nice little email. Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Relationships, you know, really and truly, there's, I think demeanor can go a long way in this business. You can get frustrated and you can get angry, and that's fine. Just keep in mind it's a situation. It's not always a person to be frustrated or angry at. You know, we're all trying to make a movie here, and it could be a lot worse. You know, we could be digging ditches, getting shot at. You know, in the end, man, we're making movies. Whether it's a commercial or a short film or whatever, we're making movies. It's cool, man. It's all right.
That is true. Now you're a veteran, correct?
Yes. I was in the Marine Corps from 1996 to 2000.
Okay. Now, how was that experience? How did that affect the way you do your job today?
Work ethic. You know, you just you do what you have to do to get it done. When you commit to something, you go full bore. If you're going to do a project and you agreed to not be paid, that's fine. That means you're doing a project for the passion of it. You're helping a friend out or whatever, and that's fine. You still go 110%. Yeah, that's the way I feel about it. And you know, working in the elements, sometimes, especially down here in South Florida, sometimes it's very hot. It's, you know, it rains, whatever. You know, adapt and overcome, man.
Well, we appreciate your service.
Well, thank you.
Now, were you overseas?
No, I was in Camp Pendleton, California. I went to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, for a Libro cruise, and I was on a LSD-45 ship. I was in 1st LAR Battalion Light Armored Reconnaissance.
You're involved with veterans that are in the media. Is that what is that about?
Oh, yes. Veterans in Television and Media. It's a website resource where other veterans can link up with each other in the production business. And they're all over the country. It's union and non-union. I'm currently non-union. I live in Florida, so. But yeah, it's a great resource for veterans for sure.
Yeah, I came across that and was just kind of checking it over. I was like, oh, that's a great resource there. So what are some common rookie mistakes that you kind of see people make over and over again in the audio field?
I would say not changing, trying the same thing over and over again, even though it's not working. And also not being vocal. If there's a problem, hey, go ahead and put your hand up, man. Unless it's live. But if you're on set and there's a problem, don't hesitate to bring it up, because the last thing you need to do is deliver a poor product, because you won't get hired again. So if there's a problem, say, hey, we need to hold for sound for a second. Be it, if the microphone fell or there's a rustle or whatever, fix it. It's okay.
Yeah, every now and then, it comes loose, and it's like I'm constantly checking. All of a sudden you hear the mic, the sound changes a little bit, and it's like, well, the mic fell. Now it's down by their navel, and that's not working. So exactly, you got to go in there. Don't just let it ride. That's for sure. All right. So how has the business changed since you started?
Well, when I first started, there weren't a whole lot of multi-channel recorders. There were mixers, and like the Shure, what was it, the FP3, I think it was, the little three-channel deal. And we'd run that straight into, like specifically the company I was working for was Parallax Productions in South Florida. And I would just have that FP3, and I would mix 3 mics down and send it into one channel on, they had, I can't remember the exact model, but it was one of those old Ikegami beta cams, the beast. So, we'd either have somebody else running the shotgun going into channel 1 on there, or I would also man the shotgun, but we would keep it separate. So you have the shotgun channel 1 on the camera, and then however many lavs that you had mixed down into the second channel on the camera. So I think it's cool to give whoever's doing that sound design in post the option to have individual tracks to work with. It gives you so much more freedom in post. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's the Shure FP33 was the one that I started with, that one as well, and yeah, we would boom on channel 1 and then lav, and then you'd split it. We were going direct to camera with a little breakout cable, so we'd put lav on one side and a boom on another, and so the good old days.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, if some of our listeners wanted to get into location sound, what would you recommend they do?
Try and find somebody to work with, somebody to kind of mentor you a little bit. You can get on as a cable puller, work as a boom operator. Anytime you can get on with somebody under a mentorship type deal, try and meet some people on online forums and things like that. I think the biggest thing that I got from school was actually networking. It's cool to see the guys that I went to school with now. We're kind of starting to take on more and more of the production locally, and we're all networked. We all know each other. Yeah, that's the best thing I would say. Try and get under somebody, and then with the people that you network with, and then the friends that you've worked with in the past or went to school with, then you can start being a mixer yourself on set. But it's great to watch somebody else and see how they work.
Do you use any kind of freelance services like Production Hub or anything like that to help get jobs?
I am on Production Hub, but and like the veterans and television and film, but really and truly, most of the work I get is word of mouth. It just just goes around like that.
That's good. Well, man, as we kind of wrap things up a little bit here, do you have any final words of wisdom that you can share with maybe somebody just starting out in the industry?
All right, troubleshooting. Something's always going to happen in the field, right? Always test one thing at a time and work backwards. Check the simplest thing first. If you're getting a crackly signal or something, go ahead and swap the cable out. Check that. If it's not the cable, twist the pot a little bit. It's a dirty pot. If not, and there's a problem with the microphone, swap the microphone out. But troubleshooting and keeping your head under a stressful situation, I think.
So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Either through my website, soundwizardllc.com, or through my email, which is jefferysj@comcast.net. And that's obviously on the website as well.
Well, man, I want to say thanks to Sound Wizard Paul Jefferys for being on the show today. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, sir.
And if you're doing some production in the South Florida area, you guys look them up.
Awesome. I appreciate it, man.
And a big thanks to all of our listeners out there. If you'd like us to discuss a particular topic, please send us an email at locationsoundpodcast@gmail.com. We would love for you to subscribe and leave us a comment. We're available on Apple Podcast, and for Android users, check out Google Podcasts. Also, we're on Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, remember, sound is half the picture.